Hi, welcome to this video. So I'm going to be talking about intervals. I'm going to do a kind of an overview of what they are, how you can use them to improve your ear training, your improvising, creating licks, improve your technique, a lot of different things. They're really a foundation of music. And basically all interval is the distance between two notes. So, if I go in a scale, let's take a C major scale and just go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 up to the octave or the eighth note. Then if I just think of those numbers and I go from the first to second, well, that'd be a second interval. First to third would be a third. First to fourth would be a fourth. A fifth, a sixth, a seventh, and the octave. Now, there are different variations. For example, if I'm playing through the major, that's my third, or also called the major third. But if I do a minor scale, it'd be back one. So that would be considered a flatted third. In this video, if I'm referring to thirds, I'm referring to both major and minor thirds in any of these cases, or seconds, both a second or a flat second. If I want you specifically to play major one, then I'll mention major on it. But so anyways, you can then find any of your intervals just by taking those major ones and you're sharpening or flattening them, and that gives you all the distances that are possible to play on the neck. Now keep in mind though, if I'm playing like a C to a G note, the G is always the fifth note in the key of C, but that doesn't mean it's always an interval of a fifth. Even playing C to G, this shape is a fifth, but if I go from this C to this G, C is a different shape, and that's actually the distance of a fourth. I'm doing descending fourth because the distance from G, if I count up 1, 2, 3, 4 to C in this place, is just a fourth. It's not a fifth anymore. But that's how you can always check if you just count up. But ideally, you'll get to know the sound and you'll get to know the shape, and then you don't have to count anymore. You can just recognize, and there'll be different shapes for the same interval. If I'm doing a fifth here, I could do a fifth going backwards too. I could do it crossing a B string, which will change the shape a little bit again. So you have different shapes. So if you notice, they still have a similar sound. So once you can kind of hear that sound, that will help you to figure out music too. And sometimes that's what you're trying to do. You're not always going to be playing the fifth. Sometimes you might be wanting the sound of a fifth. For example, if I'm doing this G note to a D, I might play that fifth, but I might play something like this. That still has kind of the sound of the fifth because the first and last note of the phrase were the two notes that make up the fifth. So sometimes you can create a lick that uses the sound without actually playing the fifth. But by playing the fifth, you'll know what that sound is and you know what that distance is, so you can target those notes. Then it creates a different lick that gives you that sound. So let's go in with that, jump into the ear training aspect. I'm just going to briefly talk about this. So when I was at GIT back in '86, one of the first things they taught you in the ear training class was intervals and how to use songs you already know. And this is a common practice that's done in most ear training, if not all. So use something you already know the sound of, because you already know the sound of intervals. You just don't know what they are necessarily. So for example, if I play this from Jaws, just E, F note, you recognize, and you can probably hum that to yourself and know what that sound is. But that's a flat second. It's just one fret up. So getting to where you not just know the sound in your head, but you know what it is and what the shape is on the neck. That's kind of a big step. So if I take like Beethoven's fifth, so that's a descending major third. You already in your head probably recognize that sound immediately and know what that sounds like, but you maybe didn't know that that was descending major thirds. So again, you can find an easy way to do this is go Wikipedia. There's a page called interval recognition, and it lists at least two songs, and most of them it's more like 5 or 6 songs for every ascending and descending interval. So then you can find something that you recognize, but that's the key, is find something that you already know, and then you can then associate with that with the interval. So then you can, when you hear that, when you try to figure out a song, you can then use that, and you don't even need your guitar then. If you can hum these intervals because they're from a song that you already can sing or hum, then when you hear it on music, you can try and hum back and find it. And then it's just a matter, if you know it's again, minor third, then it's just a matter of finding, well, what minor third is it? So you move around the neck until you match it to the music and say, oh, okay, it's a B minor third. Okay, but let's go and move forward from that. So another good way to get in your ear and also get the shapes in your fingers is just playing them. And a good way to do that is run them like a sequence. So, and I'm going to have tab, I'm going to show this at the end in more detail, but I also have it on my Patreon site, so you can download a JPEG of it and look at it at your own leisure that way. And on my Patreon site, all of the tabs are open to anyone. You don't have to be a member. They're free to download, so you don't have to worry about, I'd love it if you did become a member, but they're open access to everyone. Okay, so basically what I'm going to do, and this exercise is written down in the tab, is I'm going to move through an A minor scale in thirds. So I'm going to play a third, and that's just, again, skipping every other note. You've already played thirds, because if you play minor pentatonic, the first 2 notes is a minor third. Then I'm just going to go, no, I skipped, and I'm going to play up a third from that. So again, if you can't visualize, if you can't visualize it, just count through 1, 2, 3, and there's your third. Now, if you don't know if that's a major or minor third, you'll get to learn that, and that's something that's good to learn. Because, for example, that second note is a minor third, but then when we go to C, that's a major third. And you can see that the minor third is 1 fret further back, so that's why it's the flat third. So if I continue, of course you can do the same thing descending, just reverse it. And one of the things you're trying to do is figure out, okay, what's the best fingerings to do these in? And it's not that you're going to play a whole lick like that. It's more that way, whenever you're on any note, I know what the distance and the shape and the sound of that third would be. So then I can use that in my improvising. Okay, so let's go and move forward. Now you could do that with any of your intervals. I'd start with thirds because that is such an important one, since arpeggios are mostly made from stacked thirds, and it's a small jump. That's a good way to break up scale run. Bigger jumps like octaves and sevenths and stuff are harder to use as much because they stand out a little bit more. So more often you'll use it, like I was talking about earlier, maybe the sound of an octave, then you will actually jump an octave. Okay, so let's go and jump into some licks. So I'm going to show you a lick for most of the, well, not most of the intervals, but at least one off each one. I'm not going to show seconds because anytime you do a scale run, you're already doing a second. But here's one for thirds. So basically I'm going to just go and then slower. So I'm basically doing a scale run up, then do a major third, reverse minor third, A minor arpeggio, which is just 2 stacked thirds, and G, 7, which is also a bunch of stacked thirds. And on the tab, I've written down whether major or minor thirds underneath the tab too. So now we'll go and jump to example on fourths. Again, these are just examples. You create your own ideas on it. So that's basically just a fourth going up 1 note, so that'd be a second, and then our fourth and back. And that could be considered a D sus4 arpeggio. Again, just fourths, and then here in your stacked fifths. So this could be considered a D sus2, because I've got fifth and then the ninth or second, which are the same on that. So you could consider it a D5 with add 9, but it's also just a D sus2. So that would be that in the arpeggio shape. So arpeggios don't have to be thirds. They can be created from fifths, fourths, other combinations. Just most of them are created from thirds. And of course, you can take and combine these ideas together too. So that'd be the fourths and the fifths combined. So here's one for a flat 6. So I'm just taking a little scale run and then descending back down the scale. So I start off with a flat 6, go on the scale, then to create more interest I use a third here to skip the note that I want to end on. Now I could, if I want that as a faster lick, leave that last note off and just run it as a scale run, and then use that with other scale runs to kind of begin break up the monotony of straight scales by throwing the intervals in. The next one is going to be an octave. So there I'm just doing an octave jump and then a straight scale run down. Then you could tack the next one, which is a flat 7th right on after it. And that again started with the 7th, then I just did a scale run off that. I'm looking at the music because I wrote most of these today in preparation for this. So again, these are examples. Make up tons of your own stuff. So here's another one that kind of doesn't force the intervals in so much. So there I'm combining different intervals and not just using one type or two. I start off with the 5th, move forward in the scale, then down the major 3rd, down 4th, and end on the major 3rd. So it starts becoming something that you can just improvise and flow between, whether you're taking arpeggio into a scale or just running a scale run and ending on a 3rd instead of going to the next 2nd or flat 2nd that's in the scale, or go from any roll a finger into the 4th, just get comfortable mixing them up so that it's not just straight down the scale. Break it up with different things. So anyways, let me show a tab for you. So I'm kind of meandering now. Alright, so there's kind of illustrating the stuff I was talking about, and at the end, that 3rd exercise on the other side, it's all of the different licks I just played, other than the ones I was improvising. But again, you can download this at my Patreon page for free. So, and the link is in the description. If you like the video, please subscribe, and thanks for watching.